Hello friends and strangers out there on the internet. Welcome back to my channel. As you know, I will never say subscribe to this channel because it's something that irritates me, so I won't say that. But I hope you like the content. Yes, so now it's July, and in July it's in Norway. It's called the Ferie, and basically it's like the official holidays, the official vacation time in Norway. Just need to wash my stuff here, guys. It's a bit slippy after being raining, and in one way I kind of love it, and the other side of me hates it because everything closes down and it's just a pain. You know, like let's say your car broke down and you needed to take it to a garage. Well, the garage is just like closed, or it has minimal opening hours. Everything that would be kind of officially opened, even doctors and hospitals, they go in a minimal opening time, or they just close altogether. And this is like for a month. And what they do is they have like summer jobs for young people to take over those jobs. But you know, if you have a problem, it can be difficult to actually get proper help, you know. So yeah, so don't get sick, don't break down in July. So, you know, when I moved to Norway in 2004, and I was age 30, about 39 I think I was then, 39, just approaching 40. And it really was like a restart of my life. You know, my old life in the UK was now over, and I had an entirely new life ahead of me. And I kind of felt the same way about my art, you know. It was an opportunity to start again from scratch in a way, as though I was just leaving university again. I wanted to do a completely new type of art than I'd ever done before. And my previous style was like photorealism. And I'm kind of known for that. And I did education in portraiture, so I kind of made a living doing portraits. And I didn't want to do that anymore. You know, this was a new start. And I wanted to, like I say, I wanted to do art that was completely new for me. But the problem was, I felt that I didn't fit in to the art world anymore. You know, art had become about money, selling, cleverness, you know, and like a product to sell to the elite class, you know, the millionaire class. And that just wasn't the kind of world that I was brought up in. You know, when I was at school in the 1970s, art was, you know, treated just as importantly as maths and science and languages. And then when I left school at 16, I went straight to art school, to art college for 2 years. And again there, art was taught that it was a sacred thing, you know. Art was meant to transcend materialism. Art wasn't meant to be a product created for a consumer society. It was a product of the soul. Hello. And you see, it was precisely why I really believe that I was having difficulty thinking of what kind of art I could paint. So although I was facing an entirely new future and wanted to paint an entirely new type of art that I'd never done before, I couldn't actually think of anything. I couldn't actually think of what I wanted to do because, like I say, the world had changed. You know, it seemed to have lost its integrity. You know, and art kind of reflected that as well. You know, art also had lost its integrity. It just seemed to be about money, materialism.
New York art dealer is about to cash in after stumbling upon a valuable painting at a barn sale in the Hamptons. So here's the painting. It's titled Masset QCI. It depicts a carved grizzly bear atop a totem pole. The art dealer didn't know anything about the painting, but it did catch his eye, so he bought it for $50. He later discovered it was from a well-known Canadian artist named Emily Carr, who died about 80 years ago. It turns out the painting is worth about $200,000. So the new owner is putting the art on the auction block, and he is about to cash in.
Also known as a banana taped to a wall, fetched nearly $9 million Canadian at Sotheby's in New York. Estimated value was about $1.5 million. And
the hammer is coming up, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is it. At $205 million. Here it is for the Elizabeth Lederer portrait, only at Sotheby's, here in the Breuer. The Klimt, Julian, is yours. Congratulations.
So I was stuck. But so what I did for the first 2 years in Norway was I did a lot of self-reflection and contemplating on my past life and what kind of life I wanted in the future. The only thing I actually did was I actually got a few commissions to do portraits in my usual photorealism style. But like I say, and it was hard. It took a lot out of me because it wasn't really what I wanted to do. But I still, you know, I still did the paintings the best I could. I still gave the quality of the level that I have a standard that I set myself. It wasn't until the autumn of 2006 that I actually got like an awakening as to the direction of where I should go. And it came from an unusual source. It was from watching the series, the BBC series, called The Power of Art. And I highly recommend you watch that series. It's probably the best art history documentary series you'll ever watch. And that's largely thanks to Simon Sharma, the historian, who did an absolutely outstanding job with that series. and it was the episode, which I think was the last one, on Mark Rothko, that had a deep effect on me. And it was something that Simon Sharma said right at the end of that episode that really moved me. Can anything be less cool than this room in the heart of Tate Modern, further away from the razzle-dazzle of contemporary art, the frantic hustle of now? This isn't about now, this is about forever. This is a place where you come to sit in the low light and feel the eons rolling by, to be taken towards the gates that open onto the thresholds of eternity, to feel the poignancy of our comings and our goings, our entrances and our exits, our births and our deaths, womb, tomb, and everything in between. Can art ever be more complete, more powerful? And you know, I was so moved that I decided that I had to take a tour back to the UK, specifically to see the Seagram series, Mark Rothko's Seagram series, which is on display in the Tate Gallery. Because I just had to see them in the flesh, so to speak, to see if it was true that they really did have the power that Simon Sharma said they had. I had to see to myself, was they real or was it just bullshit? And so in 2007, I took a tour to the UK and went to see them with my daughter. It just poured down so heavy there. I just had to, I've come into the entrance of the local cinema. So we've got Supergirl on. Oh, that's been on. So, oh no, it's on 8th of July. And then we've got some kind of fantasy film. And here you see that it tells you what's coming on. And it's also like a kind of a community centre as well. I can see in the distance that the ferries have just passed each other. Let me see if I can zoom in. Yeah, you can just about see them there in the distance. Yeah, it looks like it's easing off a bit now. You see, also in these, when you live in these villages out by the fjord, they have what's known as like mini climates. So it can be sunny in you know, half a mile somewhere or even less. It can be sunny, and then suddenly you walk for 10 to 20 minutes and then it's pouring down with rain. So what I was saying was that yeah, I was inspired by those Rothko paintings because, you know, when you actually see them in the flesh, you know, you're blown away. They really do breathe and pulse like they have a heartbeat, just like Simon Sharma describes in that documentary. And you know, it's bizarre. You need to see them yourself. It's as though if you actually tried to touch them with your hand, if you reached out and tried to touch them, it's as though your hand would vanish inside them, as though there's no surface there. You know, as if they are a porthole to another reality. And how he's achieved that is incredible. And you see, this is one of the reasons why I say to people, you need to see the art with your own eyes. It's not the same in a book or even on TV. It's just not the same experience. I'm going to do a video about that, by the way. But anyway, I was inspired not to create paintings in the style of Rothko, but to see if I could create paintings that had that same energy, that same effect of breathing and pulsating like they had a heartbeat. And believe me, he tried for decades to get that effect. It was no easy task. And I also knew that, you know, I'd set myself a high bar to achieve that. But then I thought to myself, what a fantastic journey it would be to see if I could do that in my own way. A lot of tourists come to this village this time of year. Because it's a beautiful place on the fjord in western Norway. So when I returned back to Norway after seeing the Rothko paintings, like really inspired, I still didn't actually know, how I was going to do it. How was I going to get the same effect as Rothko had in his paintings, but in my way? In a style that I wanted to do, which was completely different than what Rothko had done. And also, I had this background of photorealism, although I had done some abstract experiments and art projects, I would say. But it was the art of painting that was really in my heart, I would say. So how I was going to do it, how was it possible? And it was when I realized that Rothko was not painting only about in his own time, the lifetime that he lived. He was trying to create something that was forever, for today and tomorrow's tomorrow. And that kind of gave me the clue, really, because I thought to myself, I need to try and imagine a future in which I would want to live. That, what kind of future would civilization advance to, and it would be a future where money didn't exist, that we had transcended money. So it's not communism or socialism or another form of capitalism. It's something else entirely, something that we we haven't thought of yet. But logically speaking, we can't forever go with the idea of money, because pure cold-hearted capitalism just destroys everything. You know, the closest we would come would be like occurring capitalism. But logically speaking, we must arrive somewhere in the future. This is how I'm thinking in 2007. We must arrive somewhere in the future where money doesn't exist.
If you go out long enough, assuming there's a continued improvement in AI and robotics, which seems likely, the money will stop being relevant at some point in the future. Currency becomes irrelevant. But AI and humanoid robots will actually eliminate poverty. And Tesla won't be the only one that makes them. I think Tesla will pioneer this, but there will be many other companies that make humanoid robots. But there is only basically one way to make everyone wealthy, and that is AI and robotics.
That's the kind of future I was envisaging that I wanted to live. And what would people be doing in that future without the burden of having to pay bills, having to work hard, and only to get free time, you know, when you retire? And even then, you know, you might retire and die a year later. You know, what kind of life really is that? What would people be doing in such a society where money doesn't exist? So I thought about that, and I kind of arrived at the conclusion that maybe people would be on, you know, everybody would be on a personal journey to raise the quality of their own consciousness. You know, I suppose the Buddhists call it a journey towards enlightenment, whatever that really means. I've never quite understood what exactly they mean by enlightenment, but I prefer to put it as that a journey towards raising the quality of consciousness. And by raising the quality of your own consciousness, if everybody did that, then you would automatically raise the level of the collective consciousness. Do you see what I mean? And then I thought, if I lived in such a society, a sort of utopian society, what role would the artist play in that society? You know, how could an artist help do that? How could an artist help others on their journey towards raising the quality of their consciousness? And what kind of art could do that? You see, and that was like, wow, you know, it set me on a thought path there. Yeah, so in such a future as that, where people were on this kind of spiritual journey, I suppose you could say, what would matter to people, see? And I would say it would be truth, integrity, and authenticity, because those are the qualities of someone with a very high quality consciousness. You know, such a person really isn't interested in fame. They're not interested in power. They're not interested in status, you know, are they? They're interested in raising the quality of their consciousness. So that's what would be important in such a future. So how could I create paintings that fitted that? So the first thing I realized was that truth, integrity, and authenticity would be the three pillars upon which all my paintings would be based upon. They would be truthful, they would be painted with integrity, therefore, and I had to be authentic in my motivation in doing that. That kind of led me to the next question, which was, well, what exactly is truth then? You know, what is truth? Is there one truth or are there many truths, you know? And that was a tough question. And so I contemplated on that for a while. And the conclusion I came to was that my own direct experiences are my truth, just as your experiences in your life are your truth. And you know, I often hear like skeptical people or hardened people, they sort of laugh when you say phrases like my truth, don't they? I've heard people laugh when you say that phrase, but you know, those people miss something really vital, and that is that there is a difference between understanding and knowing. And I'll just let me give you an example of what I mean. So imagine there is a woman, you know, a young woman, and she is considering having a baby. And so she wants to know what it's like to have a baby. So she goes to the library and she reads all the books on pregnancy. And she goes on YouTube and watches all documentaries on pregnancy and giving birth. She goes to a doctor and talks about it. And she goes to like mothers groups of mothers who've just had new babies and talks to them, and they tell of their experiences. And so there's nothing more to learn about giving birth. She understands everything about giving birth. But does she now know what it's like to give birth? No, she doesn't. Only when she actually becomes pregnant and carries a baby growing inside her for 9 months and then gives birth to that baby, then and only then does she know what it's like to give birth. Do you see what I'm saying? There's a difference between understanding and knowing, and that's a vital difference. And that's what I mean by only our own experiences are truthful to us. Only do we know that truth from our own experiences. We can read statistics and learn from things, but it's only when we have a direct experience that we know if that is true or not. Just in the same way as I had to go and experience Rothko's paintings in the flesh. Yeah, therefore, the only way that I could paint images, art, that was authentic to my own truth, there was only one real source available to me, and that was memories of my own experiences. And you know, memory is really a complex thing. You know, it's not just imagery, is it? You know, when you remember an experience, you don't just remember the images or what happened. Well, in fact, you can actually visualize what happened from several angles because you're moving around. You know, it's not like a flat screen on a TV, is it? You know, you can remember things from all sorts of perspectives, and then you're also you can remember smells, you can remember what you hear, you can remember things that you said, what people said, and you can also remember your feelings. So how on earth am I meant to capture a memory on a flat canvas using only colours? So I realised, you know, I'd set myself a bloody difficult task here. But like I said, it was an exciting perspective on how to create art. And so now I had the reason, a reason to paint and a subject matter of what to paint. And the reason I would be painting, which is actually what I do now, the reason why I paint is in order to help somebody, if they look at my paintings, that they are an attempt to help that person raise the level of their consciousness. And so in a way, I'm kind of painting for people of tomorrow. Maybe some people today are already on that journey. And so if they see my paintings, then it kind of helps in some small way on their journey towards raising the quality of their own consciousness. And the way I see it is that if only one of my paintings did that to one person, then I would see that I was a successful artist. And this YouTube channel is my way of presenting that journey, which I began when I moved to Norway in 2004 and actually started painting for the first time properly in 2007. And I want to share that journey. And actually it's a very interesting journey because over these 20 odd years, my paintings have actually done that. People who have seen my work have been emotionally affected by them and spiritually affected by them. So you see, in the eyes of today's art world, I would be seen as a failure. But maybe in the future people who are in pursuit of a more higher quality existence, then maybe they would view my work differently. I don't know, guys, but that's my journey, and I'm kind of inviting you to come along, and I'm going to tell stories of what happened to each of these paintings. And you begin to understand now why my paintings take such a long time, because my background was in photorealism, which is why I love detail. I get sucked into detail, but the paintings I create are more than just images. They're like experiences that I try to trigger in people that look on them. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. Hope you come along on the journey. I think you'll find it interesting, even if you're not an art interested person. So I'll leave it there, guys. And as usual, take care, give care, and be careful out there. And don't be strangers. And visit me again on Artur Reimagined. See ya.